Welcome back. It's still Politics Thursday, reaching you live on MITV. It's time to take you through the headlines on different dailies. The screaming headlines here, not very disturbing stories like Benjamin Peters said, but I'm starting with the Punch newspaper. The screaming headline on the Punch says, "Workers stop fuel supply, shut NNPC headquarters." That's on page 25 of the Punch newspaper. Other stories: Lagos building collapse, death toll hits 35, contractor arrested. That's on pages 4 and 5 of the Punch. The writers here say women have 4 children amongst dead victims. Reports to police, Ambode orders Lekki Gardens chiefs. That's on pages 4 and 5 of the Punch. Other stories: Okoli's driver does not have a driving license. That's coming from the FRSC. The late minister's son didn't use seat belts. That's on page 2. Aregbesola names Uniosun after Bola Ige. That's on page 7 of the Punch. House of Reps take over Kogi Assembly. That's on page 7. Federal government uncovers fresh 11,000 ghost workers. That's on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. We have our political analyst, of course, is also a social commentator right here with us to do justice to some of the headlines on the papers. It's very good to have you on the program. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
So I'm starting off with the story about Kogi Assembly. It says House of Reps take over Kogi Assembly, page 7. This is not the first time we're seeing a minority in the House of Reps taking over the Assembly. It happened in Ekiti State some months back. So what are your, would we say it's becoming recurrent? What are your comments?
Well, it's just in line with the legal framework, or let me put it this way, the Constitution. Section 11, 4 plus 4 indicates that where we have this kind of restful situation in a particular state, the House of Rep can wade into it and legislate for a while to stabilize the environment. So I think it's in line with the Constitution. And if it is in line with the Constitution, there is little we can say about it.
Okay, we'll take you straight to the front page of the Guardian. And this report: Labour grants power, fuel supply over NNPCs and bundling. And of course, government okay state burial for Bochole. 30 confirmed dead in Lekki Gardens building collapse. And of course, looking at experts warn of looming kidney failure epidemic in Nigeria. Okay, Dr. Patrick, how did you receive the latest development? NNPC unbundling, refineries are shut down, the Kaduna refinery is shut down, and of course, fuel scarcity is actually gaining ground.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, really. I expected this current regime to tackle the issue of fuel crisis differently. Okay. Because under the immediate past regime, fuel supply or scarcity of fuel is one of the areas they had very, very negative rating. Okay. And the current dispensation ought to have put measures in place to ensure that such that actually marked the regime of Goodluck Jonathan down and did not reoccur. Having said that, I think the unbundling is also very, very disturbing because what the Senate is saying, and also the various ampengasing and all that, shows that the unbundling did not follow the due process. And so there's a legal framework or an approach that should be followed. But I think all this will be resolved. The man has said, he has not unbundled.
It's all reorganization. So, English has its way of... Okay,
I'm moving on to the Daily Trust newspaper. There are several stories here, but I'm starting with this one from the oil sector. It says, oil workers shut NNPC operations. We reorganize, not unbundled. That's coming from the federal government. Minister to meet with union leaders. That's on page 6 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Other stories: death toll in collapsed Lagos building hits 30. That's on page 4. Okoli's driver has no license. That's coming from the FRSC. That's on page 3 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Other stories: DNA test confirms Musa as Gowon's son. That's on page 5. Reps take over functions of Kogi Assembly. That's on page 5 as well. 32 arraigned in Lagos over Mile 12 riots. That's on page 10 of the Daily Trust newspaper. Finally, 690 days since over 200 Chibok schoolgirls were taken by Boko Haram. Still keeping tabs of the Chibok girls. Now, I'd like to get your opinion again, still not talking about the oil workers. When you talk about NNPC and then you talk about the shortage of fuel and the scarcity of fuel in Nigeria and other parts of Nigeria, some would say the pipeline vandals are still in power. The pipeline vandals still are doing what they're doing, what they had been doing before. So if you're talking about the government, okay, people are saying the government hasn't done this, the fuel workers haven't done this, NNPC hasn't done this. How about the masses? How about people who are involved in vandalizing these pipelines when the pipelines are built?
Yeah, I think government efforts are in place. We saw what happened in Ogun State the other time. The activities of the vandal is actually telling seriously in Nigeria, and I think security vote must, focus on that area. But having said that, I think we have the oil marketers are also alleging that the ex-depot, pump price for loading is high at 95, naira. And they can't take the product at 95 and go to sell at 87. So they are agitating that it should be 77 naira, and that is where the bottom line, the issues lie right now.
Okay, we'll quickly take a look at the front page of The Nation, and of course the recent collapse of a building in Lekki has actually claimed more life. Death toll climbs up to 35 in Lagos. Building collapse, front page of The Nation. And Fayose plans solidarity rallies. You can get that on page 44. And federal government probing another 11,000 on its payroll. Nigeria to experience shorter rainfall, says NAMEF. And all workers kick as Catch Group clarifies NNPC's action on page 11. And of course, that's actually the doctor. Of course, the recent collapse of the building in Lekki was quite. At the point, it was 8. Was it 8 or 16 in number?
16. And it keeps rising.
And now it's 35. Yes. What kind of measure in terms of discipline you think government can actually? We're told that Ambode, of course, have given ahead a directive to clamp down on the contractors.
Yeah, it's very, very expedient, and I think the major problem is the lack of closer marking on the government, because we are told that the contractor are not actually building experts. They are just what you may call estate developers, and in trying to economize and make more money into their pockets, they apply, substandard,
building
materials, and all. Experts are not involved. And I also think that the government monitoring machinery is not quite strong and forceful enough. Otherwise, for a building to have risen to that level, of course, we're told that we're giving notice of, to stop work because they have raised the building beyond the approved floor number.
Okay.
That notwithstanding, I think if they have come with punitive measure, they will have halted further progress on the project before now.
Okay,
so it's rather unfortunate.
Very quickly, that's like there's been one too many building collapse in Lagos, in Nigeria.
Yeah.
We heard about the synagogue church a few months back, and now this one.
Yeah.
Don't you think, to an extent, like the building regulatory agencies and so many other infrastructural agencies that are involved in buildings, how a building is set up, especially all of these multinational buildings, should also be questioned and be put in the picture?
That's exactly what I'm saying. That's why I said the body responsible. There are several bodies responsible for this, and they need to come in much more closely. The gap between the estate developers or the contractors and government agency is too wide. There should be close marking and forceful control and punitive measure when people, go against the standard.
Okay, moving on to the Authority newspaper. There are several headlines here, but I'm starting with this one, which is coming from the CBN. It says federal government to prosecute top CBN officials and others. That's on pages 2 of the Authority newspaper. The writer here says there are economic terrorists. Report indicting them. Ready, says AGF. Report indicting them. Ready, says the AGF. That's on page 2 of the Authority newspaper. Other stories here. Okoli's driver to face trial for overspeeding. That's coming from page 4. That's on page 4 rather, and that's on the Authority newspaper. Okoli's driver to face trial for overspeeding. That's coming from the federal government on page 4 of the Authority. Rotary International honors Emeka Ofo. Inducts Ifeanyi Uba. That's on page 4 of the Authority. Workers shut down NNPC over restructuring. That's on page 13. U.S. Congressmen visit. IPOB names Ekwemi Anyoku. Others negotiators. That's on page 2. IPOB names Ekwemi Anyoku. Others negotiators. That's on page 2 of the Authority newspaper. Very quickly, I'd like to touch on Okoli's demise. the FRSC has come up with different speculations. Of course, different facts that the driver had no driver's license. Okoli's son wasn't using his seatbelt. But even if the driver had a driver's license, would that have stopped what happened? Would that have abated the situation? I just keep asking myself.
The driver's license really
I think it's really an issue.
Not really an issue. I think it's just that they needed to highlight that, so that the government can pay serious attention to the criteria.
And the aspect of saying that he's going to face trial, I wonder what's the justification for him to face trial?
Yeah, it's not something that can really be proven to be under certain reasonable doubt, because he can claim that he was not on excess speed and all that.
Okay.
But I think something is coming up here beyond the fact that driver and the person beside them, him, should put on seatbelt. We are beginning to see that even passengers on the rear seat also need to put on seatbelt. Perhaps that could have also helped, because we're told that the three of them, the wife, the son, and Okoli himself, were not on seatbelt.
But I think there's also where government top executives in government should also be mindful of their drivers having driver's license. I don't think you can imagine a driver driving a minister does not have a license. Then that is not the driver's fault. I think somebody. Yeah.
The agencies in charge too should also be on the note. They should also keep tabs on.
That's it. And I also think that even beyond the driver and all that, the passenger themselves, the commissioner or the minister or whatever, whoever is the boss, should also be able to impart on the driver on the concept of slow and moderate driving.
Okay, quickly now, we'll just quickly wrap up the press review fast. We'll take you straight to the Nigerian Tribune. Okay, I'm sure you have another daily?
No, I'm over and done with
Okay, then. So we'll take a look at the Nigerian Tribune. All workers strike FG to lose 3.5 billion naira daily. It has three riders. Fuel scarcity looms, unbundling of NNPC illegal, says the Senate. And what we have simply done is reorganization, Kachuku explains. You can get that on page 11. And the FRSC to FEC, Ocholi's driver had no license on top speed. Okay, and reps take over Kogi Assembly. Declare Speaker's impeachment illegal. Direct IGP to seal off premises. And finally, we wrap up with the New Telegraph, which has it that forest scarcity, weak naira, EFCC probes banks, BDCs, businessmen. Federal government will prosecute culprits, says AGF, and that you can get on page 2. And of course, all workers shut down NNPC operations nationwide. Well, Doctor, if you look at the forest scarcity and the weak naira, the banks and the Bureau of the Change has been indicted. Is it actually the fault?
Well, I wouldn't say so, but you know, when things of this nature are systemic, and what they're trying to say is that the fluctuating of the naira is a function of collaboration between bank workers and Bureau de Change and all that, and the source that has to do with managing the foreign currency and all that. So there's a need to tackle that segment also, because the issue of corruption and cleaning the society has to be total.
Thank you very much, Dr. Patrick